Erev Tov, everyone. It is Tuesday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States in the diaspora, or 9 o'clock in the Dominican Republic. This is the Maimon Beit Knesset, and therefore it is the Rabbis Discuss with Rabbi Aryel and Rabbi Ancel. So let me bring Rabbi Ancel in. Let me first get his picture up here. And you're on, sir.
Erev Tov, everybody. Before we start, I have a question for the room, if anybody's in the room.
Yeah, we've got people in the room. Donald, Marshall, and Richard are in the room right now, and more to come.
Who got confused the last one in the last lecture?
I was going to say, who? Wouldn't it be just easier to say who didn't get confused?
Okay, I got confused.
Yeah, so did I. I mean, I went through four pieces of paper trying to keep track of it all.
Well, tonight you pulled a section out of the Shulchan, which talks about Maaser, and it's easier to understand, and actually much easier to understand. So we should go over it so that everybody understands it and not get confused, because the last lecture, you had to be a lawyer. Well, first of all, you had to be Jewish, a lawyer, and an accountant.
That's true, yeah. It was, okay, let me just...
And I really didn't go through the whole thing. You know, I had 5 pages, and I was like almost finished with the third page.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, yeah. Well, Marilyn has joined us, so
Hi,
good to see you,
Marilyn.
Marilyn. You've been away for a little bit. So, yeah, so what we did was went back into the Shulchan Aruch to look to see what did it actually say, because, you know, there was a lot of information going on, flying around last week, and it was getting... I mean, you heard Rabbi Ancel and I going through and trying to figure out, okay, well, you know, hypothetically, you know, you make this much money and this and that and the other thing, and it was just crazy. So I said, okay, what does the Shulchan Aruch actually say about this? And then I sent it on to Rabbi Ancel, and we said, okay, this makes it a little easier, or actually a whole lot easier to understand. So we probably should go through this so we can kind of help straighten things out.
I felt very uncomfortable because, yes, maybe I understand more than the people in the room, or you understand, I'm sure you understand more than the people in the room, but we're trying to put the knowledge across to the room so that they understand. To me, it was tough. I mean, there were some sections I just said, you know, I got to go back to school and learn how to do an income tax return, you know, because if it was straightforward, okay, you have a business and you can deduct your car expenses, and you can deduct this, okay, then you can calculate your maaser. But whatever you could deduct on your business account, it didn't qualify for maaser.
Right, yeah.
Totally confusing.
Some of it did, a lot of it didn't. So, yeah, it was almost like you had to keep 2 books.
Oh, for sure you had to keep 2 sets of books. So tonight, this one, I read through it, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and it's much, much, much easier. They will understand basically everything. The only thing is you got to make it a little bit larger, because I'm also going to help you read.
Yeah. Okay, so Donald says it really is quite confusing. So hopefully we can untangle some of the knots that we wove last week. So I guess we should get at it. This is the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. This is Siman 34. Or chapter 34, and the rules are 1 through 16. So we'll go ahead and go through those. You want to take the first one?
Yeah, you want to make it a little bit bigger?
A little bit bigger. It's 24 inches now. How much bigger do you want it?
I am. Oh, now this is perfect.
Oh, good.
I'm on a
I'm glad to hear
I'm on a
that.
14-inch screen.
I've got a 26-inch screen on here, and the text on it takes up the entire screen. So
Oops. Okay. It is a positive mitzvah to give charity to the poor of Israel. As it is said, you shall surely open your hand for him. And as it is said, and your brother shall live with you. Whoever sees a poor man requesting help and turns away, you turn away from him without giving him charity, violates a negative command. As it is said, do not close your heart or shut your hand from your poor brother. Charity is the sign of the descendants of our patriarchs Abraham. As it is said, for I know him, that he will command his children to perform charity. The throne of Israel will not be established, and the true faith will not stand except through charity. As it is said, I shall be established through charity. Great is the one who gives, well, great is, I should say, great is the person who gives charity more than all these sacrifices. As it is said, that the performance of charity and judgment will be more desirable before God than an altar. So any sacrifices that were made on the altar were not as how should I say? They were not as, there was a bigger mitzvah to give charity than making a sacrifice on the altar.
right.
Israel will not be redeemed except through charity. As it is said, Zion will be redeemed through the judgment, and those who return to her through charity. A person will never become poor because of his giving charity, nor will any evil or damage come because of charity. As it is said, the work of charity is peace. Whoever shows mercy will have mercy shown towards him. As it is said, he will grant mercy, have compassion on you, and make you flourish. Can you raise it a little?
Yes.
Okay. And in contrast, anyone who is cruel, his lineage is in doubt. The Holy One, blessed be He, is close to the call of the poor. As it is said, and He hears the cries of the poor. Accordingly, one should take care lest they cry out. For a covenant has been established with them, like it said, and it shall come to pass that he will cry to me, and I will hear, for I am compassionate. The Jerusalem Talmud says, the door which will not open for the poor will open for the physician. A person should meditate on the fact that at every moment he asks God for his livelihood. Just as he requests from the Holy One, blessed be he hears his cries, so too shall he hear the cry of the poor. Is everybody following up to now?
I think so.
He should also mediate the fact that the wheel of fortune turns constantly, and ultimately either he, his children, or his grandchildren will need to receive charity. A person should not think, how can I reduce my wealth by giving it to the poor? He must realize that the money is not his, but rather a trust granted to him in order to carry out his will of the one of God, who entrusted it to him. This is the portion which he will ultimately receive for all his labor in the world. As it is written, your charity will precede you before God. Charity wards off harsh decrees and prolongs one's life. And it just gives where all this information comes from.
Yeah, there's actually 13 references that in that preceding statement, which basically establishes why charity is so important. And there are 13 references in the Torah to what was just read. So I mean, it goes through the Torah, through the entire Tanakh, actually.
Yes.
And then we also had references from the Talmud. So, the line runs through all of our documents. So let's see. Simcha has joined us, and
any questions?
Not so far.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'll take 34. How's that?
Okay.
Okay, so I'll just scroll that. Okay. Every person is obligated to give charity according to his capabilities.
Thank God, now it says it the right way.
Pardon?
I said that's the way it should be.
Right, exactly.
That's what it didn't say there. Okay.
Even a poor man who gets his living from charity. For example, if he has some money of his own which he does not do business with, he is allowed to take charity because he doesn't have a principal invested in order to live off profits. Nevertheless, since he has that which could provide an income, he is obligated to give charity from what is being given to him. It's kind of the same thing with the Kohanim. The Kohanim got from Bnei Yisrael.
Yes.
But they actually had to give charity.
Yes.
So even if he is able to give only a small amount, he should not hold himself back because his small amount is as important as a rich man's large amount. Similarly, it was said by our sages, may their memory be for a blessing, as it is said, describing a burnt offering of a beast, a fire offering, a pleasant fragrance, and the burnt offering of a fowl is described also as a fire offering, a pleasant fragrance. And the meal offering is described as a fire offering, a pleasant fragrance. This teaches you that it is the same whether one gives a lot or a little, so long as one directs one's heart to one's Father in heaven. Nevertheless, pardon?
I said, this is why they say it's not the amount that you give, it's the intent.
Right, and we see that in the Torah because the Torah law says, well, if he can give an ox, or if he can't afford an ox, he give a goat. If he can't do that, then a bird. If he can't afford that, then a meal offering, and so on and so forth. And it just keeps coming down, and they're all acceptable. They're all equally acceptable. So, nevertheless,
this is why they're saying it's according to one's capabilities, and this is why I like the way this is written, because you can understand it.
Yeah. Nevertheless, anyone who has no more than is necessary for his own living is not required to give charity.
Thank you.
For one's own living comes before that of any other person. Now, that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay. So we're on to 34, so I'll let you read 34.
Okay.
Or 34:3, I'm sorry.
Okay. How much should one give to a poor person? Enough to meet all his life's needs. This applies to a poor man who receives charity in secret. The people of his city are obliged to give him for all his needs, as he was accustomed to before he became poor.
But
a poor man who goes around collecting door to door, one gives him a small donation according to his standing. At least he should be given in the entire city enough bread and food for 2 meals each day and a place to sleep. We must support and clothe the non-Jewish. See, then it's too small for non-Jewish poor, together with the Jewish poor, because of the principle, the way of peace.
Okay.
So you must support even a non-Jew.
Right. If he's in your city, the
Yep.
city's responsible for him.
Yep.
Yeah, but I do like this idea is that what they're saying here is that, okay, well, if a man's doing it in secret, who knows about it? So you have to assume that very few people are going to give him any money. If he's a person that goes around and begs, goes around day to day, begging, then you don't have to give him as much because he's got a much richer source of getting money than the person who is sitting in silence, shall we say.
A person who gives charity in silence or secretly is much more important than telling everybody, because then it becomes like a show off.
Yeah.
So giving in secret is much more honorable to do.
Well, Maimonides has the, what is it, the 5 or the 7 levels of charity?
Yes.
Yeah. And the greatest one was that the one who gives actually it wasn't. That was one of the higher ones. The other one was the higher ones were the ones where he sets the person up in a business, so that he can continue to make money and won't need charity anymore. So let's go on to 34:4. I'll take this one.
Yeah.
So we'll just kind of pass these back and forth. How's that?
Okay.
Okay, how much charity should a person give? The first year, 1/10 of the principal. Afterwards, one should give 1/10 of the profit one makes each year. This is an average measure. The most desirable way of performing the mitzvah is to give 1/5 of the principal in the first year, and then 1/5 each year from 1/5 each year from the profit. A person should, pardon?
Here's a question.
Uh-huh.
It's good to say that. What happens if 1 year he has a loss?
Well, yeah. I mean, if he has a loss, there's no profit. Evidently, he doesn't have a fifth to give.
Okay. But here's the question. Remember the last lecture, it said that if you have a loss in the year, you can carry it forward for the next year.
Right.
So what happens if that particular loss from the year before is applied against the income of the current year, and it nails it out, so you have no income? You understand?
Yeah.
So now you got 2 free years.
Okay, so Donald has a question.
Yes.
He wants to know why 1/5.
Why this is what the rabbis decided.
I think
there's
I think that comes from the Torah, and it's actually based on the laws of the thief, that he has to repay and add to it its fifth.
Yeah, but fifth of what?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I would have to pull up the parsha to be able to tell you.
No. He says 1/5 of the profits. So he's not saying that it's the 1/5. Let's say it's in the Torah, but it's from the profits, not from his income.
Right. Well, let's go back here. It says the most desirable way of performing the mitzvah is to give 1/5. Okay, so now we just had back here at the beginning of this, how much charity should a person give? The first year, 1/10 of the principal. Afterwards, one should give 1/10 of the profit one makes each year. This is an average measure. The most desirable way of performing the mitzvah is to give 1/5, not 1/10, of the principal in the first year, and then 1/5 each year of the profit.
It's most desirable if you can afford it.
Yeah. A person should not give away more than 1/5 so that he doesn't need afterwards from others. Okay, but it kind of sounds contradictory because it's saying how much charity should a person give? 1/10. And then it goes on to say, well, not 1/10, 1/5.
Because the 1/10 says it's just an average measure. Some of it is dubious because, who decided on that?
Yeah. Well, the 1/10?
Yeah.
Well, that comes from Torah.
Correct.
Right.
So does the 1/5.
Let's find out. Let's see. Okay. Well, we'll find out when we get to. Let's get a little further into this. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, this restriction is only during his lifetime. However, on his deathbed, a person can give up to 1/3 of his property to charity. One should not use one's tithes to perform a mitzvah, i.e., to donate candles to the synagogue or to perform other mitzvot. Rather, they should give to the poor. If the chance to perform a mitzvah presents itself, to circumcise one's son, to help provide for a marriage of a poor bride and groom, or the like, and similarly to buy sacred texts to study from, and to lend to others to study from, if one does not have the means and would not be able to perform the mitzvah from his own money, he may use for that purpose from the tithes. If he used his tithes to purchase sacred text, he must take care to lend them to others when he does not need them, for he receives first priority. He should also write in them that they were purchased from his tithes, so that they will not be kept as their own property by his sons after his passing. Okay, so there's a note on here. It says the Lemberg edition includes in brackets after deducting his household expenses. However, this is not found in most texts of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Other halakhic authorities are more stringent and require a tithe to be given from one's entire income before deducting one's living expenses. Okay, so Lemberg says that you can deduct, and the other ones say no. So,
not surprised.
Okay, so we're on to 34:5.
One who wants to gain merit for himself should refrain his evil inclination and open his hand. Everything which is done for the sake of heaven should be from the best and the nicest. If one builds a synagogue, it should be nicer than one's home. If one feeds the hungry person, one should feed him from his best and sweetest foods on one's table. If one clothes the naked, one should clothe him from one's finest garments. If one wants to consecrate something for charity, he should consecrate the choicest of his possessions. So it is said, all the fat shall go to God.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. One who gives to his older sons and daughters, whom he is not obliged to sustain, i.e., those above 6 years old.
Huh?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. In order to teach his sons Torah and train his daughters in a proper path, and similarly, one who gives presents to his father, whom he can only support from his charity money, should they require it, may consider these expenses as charity. Okay, I want to back up on this one. One who gives to his older sons and daughters, whom he is not obliged to sustain.
Why?
Well, I would, just reading that, I would think, okay, well, they're married and they're on their own and they, are independent at that point. But it says, i.e., those above 6 years old.
But that's the problem because, we're assuming again.
Yeah.
It should say, for a girl who's even for a boy who's 6 years old, you're not obliged to sustain. It just
it doesn't make any sense. I mean, you're obliged to sustain your children. Especially your daughter. You're obliged to sustain her until she's married.
Yep. Okay, it says, furthermore, he should give them priority over others. Even someone who is neither a son or a father, rather his relative, has priority over others. The poor of one's household have priority over the poor of one's city. Okay. And the poor of one's city have priority over the poor of another city. Okay. As it is said, to your brother, to your poor, and to your needy in your land. However, the manager of a charitable fund who distributes the charity should be careful not to give his relatives more than other poor. Okay, I'll agree with that.
Yeah, because he's distributing other people's money.
The top part, I gotta look into that one because it doesn't make sense. To
Yeah, 6 years old. I mean, seriously.
Anyone who gives charity to a poor person in an unfriendly manner and downcast face.
Let's repeat that one.
Sorry?
I said, let's repeat that one. Yeah, because I have seen people make that face when somebody comes up and asks them for money. Yeah. Anyone who gives charity to a poor person in an unfriendly manner and downcast face, even if he gave him 1,000 gold pieces, loses his merit. And that's a pretty strong statement.
Yeah, because he didn't give it with a good heart.
No.
I mean, that I'll understand.
He giving it begrudgingly.
Yeah.
No, I have to.
Transgresses, your heart shall not be grieved. Rather, one needs to give him in a pleasant manner with happiness, sharing his suffering with him. As Job said, did I not weep for him that was in trouble? Was not my soul grieved for the poor? He should speak to him words of consolation. As it is said, I caused joy for the widow's heart. That is honorable. That I understand, but that thing about the children, I gotta look that up.
Yeah. That's a little esoteric.
It is forbidden to turn away a poor man who asks for a gift empty-handed. Even if all of you give him is a dry fig, as it is said, do not turn away the oppressed to shame. If you have nothing to give him, console him with words. It is forbidden to rebuke harshly a poor person or raise one's voice against him, for his heart is broken and humble. And see, it says, a broken and contrite heart God will not despise. Woe unto those who embarrass the poor. Rather, we should be like a father to them, showing them mercy and speaking to them, as it states, I am a father to the poor.
Yeah, all of us have probably seen that video of the guy that was, sitting out in front of the store. It was in New York, and the New York police officer came up and I just read him the riot act and told him to get a job, and I really embarrassed him. I mean, it was just why that cop still has a job is far beyond me. Should have been fired.
Well, we live in a strange world. Sometimes I look at this world and say, should this world survive? Because it's not a nice world. Anyway, it's only me. Yeah. Charity that one promises is considered as vows. Therefore, one who says, see, this selah is for charity, or this selah is charity, he must give it to the poor immediately. If one delays, he violates the prohibition of do not delay, because one could have given it immediately. If there are no poor near him, one sets the money aside until he finds a poor person. If he makes a vow in the synagogue to give charity through the Rabbi, he does not violate the delay until the Rabbi requests it from him. Then if he doesn't pay, he immediately violates the promise. However, if he knows that the Rabbi doesn't use the money now, rather than the promised monies shall be left with him. Okay, so he gives the charity to the Rabbi, and the Rabbi is responsible to disperse it.
Right.
If he hasn't got any poor man, he can put it aside until he finds one. Okay, I'll go with that.
Well, and the fact that, when we pray for the sick.
Yep.
There's a section. I mean, if as long as you're not reading a Reform or a Conservative Siddur, there is a section in there on the Mishabarak that says, "I will give charity on behalf of this person."
Yes.
And a lot of people don't, and hence why you'll actually see people at the Western Wall who will come up and say, for some money, I will pray for your sick person, every day for a week or something like that.
The Kel Mule Rachamim says that you give tzedakah in the name of somebody.
Right.
Or even for a deceased person. One who says, I will give a selah charity to so, and does not violate the don't delay until that poor person comes. Any person may set aside money for charity so that it will be available for him to distribute a little by little as he sees fit. See, this makes more sense,
Yeah.
We hit a couple sentences that, we're going to look into that. A person who influences others to give charity and prevails upon them receives a greater reward than the giver, as it is said, Vahi Hatzdaka Shalom. The work of charity is peace. To the managers of charitable funds and others who collect charity, it is said, and they...
Yep. Sorry about that.
They who turn away their righteousness are like the stars. The manager of a charitable fund who is insulted by the poor should not be upset, for his for this increases his merit even more.
Yeah, that would be the.
Sometimes you'll get a poor person and you give him some money, and sometimes, inadvertently, or he says that's all you got. It's shouldn't get mad at him because he needs the money. That should be understood.
Okay. Want me to take this one?
Uh-huh.
The greatest wrong, which has nothing above it, is on the ladder of charity, is supporting the poor Jew and maintain his position before he reaches utter poverty. This includes giving him a proper gift in an honorable manner, granting him a loan, or go into partnership with him, or find him a business or profession which allows him to support himself and thus not be forced to rely on others. On this was said, you shall come to his aid, i.e., assist him, so that he does not fall.
I I understand, but I think they're asking too much of a person. It's finding him a business. You can find him a business, but what is he going to buy it with?
Well, it also says granting him a loan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of goes hand in hand, doesn't it?
Yeah, I understand. We'll go into partnership with him. Well, you got the money and he's your partner, but he doesn't have monies. And then as a partner, he's 50-50. So,
Well, I can see that. I mean,
yeah,
that, okay, well, this person has a certain skill set that I
if
don't
he's a
have,
professional, yeah.
and I know how to market that kind of a skill so that it will bring in money, which he doesn't have, and together, even though he can't put anything into the business, we both make money.
Perfectly fine.
Yeah.
You see, you have to read it a couple of times to really understand it, because just assuming this, because that's what I did, but reading it again, sure, you can grant him a loan and go into partnership with him, and once he starts making up, when the two of you start making profit, he can start paying you back the loan from his profit and keep enough money for him to live on.
Right. And there
Perfectly.
you've actually given him a living, and he hasn't gotten to the point where he is become destitute and needs to beg for charity.
Perfectly acceptable.
One should take care to give charity secretly as
Yep.
much as possible. If it is possible to give in a manner that he himself doesn't know to whom he gave, and also the poor person doesn't know from whom he received, this is very good.
Remember I told you about Dr. Richard, a good friend of mine. We used to go daven every morning and Shabbos. Every Wednesday, him and I, 10 o'clock at night, we would go to the store and we would buy a few bags of food. And this was the person he knew. I didn't know. And he would leave the bags of food at the door. That person, for as long as I know Richard before he died, 4 or 5 years, that person never knew from where it came from.
Yeah. Well, and then again, that's one of the things Maimonides is actually the upper levels of charity.
Yeah, that person never knew, but there was 4 or 5 bags every Wednesday at the door.
Yeah. At least one should not boast of the charity one gives. Nevertheless, a person who consecrates an article to charity is allowed to write his name upon it so that it will be a memorial for him. This is fitting to do. consecrates an article to charity. Okay, so I guess if you if my family had an antique Kiddush cup,
Uh-huh.
right? And
You can engrave your name on it.
yeah, and then if I donated it to a museum, still charity, and I can have my name on it. Yeah,
Give and buy. You can put your name on it.
right.
Okay, let's see. In particular, one needs to look after the poor Torah sage to give him charity according to his honor. If he doesn't want to accept, he should be offered merchandise for his business dealing. One sells him the goods at a low price and buys from him the goods at a higher price. If he is knowledgeable in commerce, he should be lent money for business. See, now they're explaining it.
Yeah.
Our sages of blessed memory said, whoever supplies a Torah sage with good merits and will sit in the heavenly academy. Similarly, they said, all the prophets envisioned only the benefits resulting from engaging in commerce on behalf of a Torah sage and marrying one's daughter to a Torah sage. Okay.
Okay.
The room is quiet.
Yeah, Don says, how many 6-year-old children can obtain their own food? Not that
Yeah,
I
well,
know of.
I got to check that out.
Yeah. And Shoshi
A
has joined
person
us.
should always distance himself from charity. Huh?
Well, let's read the whole thing.
Okay, accepting difficulty rather than needing the assistance of others. So stated our sages of blessed memory, make your Sabbath like a weekday, but don't seek assistance from others. Even if he was an honored Torah sage who became poor, he should involve himself in a profession, even a menial professional, rather than needing the help from others.
Okay, so basically, don't become a schnorrer, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyone who doesn't need to accept charity but deceives people and takes will not die before he does need public assistance. However, anyone who needs to receive charity and cannot live unless he takes it, e.g., an older man, a sick person, or somebody suffering from privation, and out of pride refuses to take it, is considered a murderer and liable for his life. All he has for his pain is sin and iniquity. However, anyone who needs to take charity and refrains and enters into poverty life or privation, rather than burdening the public, will not die before he is able to support others. About him, it was said, blessed is the man who trusts in God.
So there you have it. That is what the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, says about giving charity. All the rest of it was commentary, right?
Yep. Questions, guys?
Yeah.
Where's Donald?
Yeah, he's in there. He's the one that put up what 6-year-old can.
Yeah, that's interesting because it just, it's also, in the olden days when you were talking about bar mitzvah, 13 and a girl at 12. Well, this came later on. But in those days, 13-year-olds were allowed to marry.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
How can a 13-year-old boy marry a 12-year-old girl?
How?
It, it,
Do I
it,
really need to explain that to you?
I'm sorry?
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I thought I
You
was
know,
going to have to explain the birds and the bees to you. I mean,
yeah, I know, but this is some of the questions we should look into, Ariel, because this Donald is asking, how can you refuse feeding a 6-year-old girl?
well, I'll tell you, we had a story last night on the Zeta Story Corner
Uh-huh.
about a Isaac Bashevis singer. One of his stories, and he talked about this man who was became a wanderer after he was forced into the Tsar's army. He said that was the tradition, and I have to believe that this was actually based in fact. In fact, I know it was based in fact. That the Cossacks and the Tsar's, armies and stuff like that would kidnap young boys to fight in the Tsar's army, and so there was a law that said that if the boy was married, he couldn't be taken. He couldn't be taken into the army. So they would marry their children like at 8 years old. To save them from being
It's a
kidnapped and sent
possibility
off
that
to Siberia.
I could understand that. It doesn't make sense. Even at 8 years old, even at 13, it's the same things like a lot of the Jews during communism. They
Hmm.
changed the name to a non-Jew because of the situation. So could it have happened? Possible.
Well, we know that Rabbi Nachman of Breslov
Yeah.
was married when he was just after his bar mitzvah.
That is true. Listen, a lot of a lot in Israel, a lot of them, and Me'ar Shearim, a lot of the Chabadniks and a lot of the Hasidim, they still go by that. This is why a lot of these Hasidim and you know they have a problem with recognizing Israel because they say that the only time the real Israel will exist is when Mashiach will come. Ah, I have a hard time understanding that because the reasons. There's two reasons why if Moshiach will come, and I doubt it because they say that Moshiach will come if all of Israel would observe,
Yeah.
one Sabbath. All of Israel. That will never happen. You
Yeah.
can stand on your head and spit nickels because it's just not going to happen.
Well, we have that coming up in the Torah parsha.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
they just got the commandments and everything, and what ends up happening? They find a guy out collecting wood on the Sabbath.
The other thing is they say the Mashiach will come when the temple will be rebuilt. We've had ample time to rebuild the temple.
Yeah.
Is it going to happen? I don't know. These are things that make me think, do people really want Mashiach to come? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that the other reason they say that will bring Mashiach will be if all Israel turns into heretics.
Okay, here's the other problem. It says that Moshiach
Yeah,
will come.
we got lousy writing. Now let me see if I remember. Is it Harrison?
Yes.
I'm trying to remember if he said his name was Harrison or not. So I just want to check my memory here. Okay, so
But this is what I'm saying. Here's the other biggest problem that I have. It says that when Moshiach will come, there will be no death. we gotta run out of room.
Yeah, yeah, quickly.
Where are we gonna go?
Yeah. But I mean,
So-
on that vein that you're talking about, I mean, we got, we have the state of Israel, and we have Eretz Israel,
Yeah.
and the two are not the same.
Correct.
And it's been my conjecture all along is that the state of Israel has to exist for Mashiach to come. Has to. And that's
Exactly.
because of the way the prophecy is written.
Correct.
Okay, so I'll explain it for the people in the chat room. It said that the Mashiach ben Yosef, I mean, this is the two Mashiach. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Mashiach ben Yosef will come. He will lead the armies of Israel against the nations to reestablish the borders as they were promised. And then towards the end of that period, before he's actually completed, he will die. And Mashiach ben David will come. He will complete the war and make peace with the nations and reestablish the temple.
He is the real Mashiach.
Okay, so, and he will turn, just like it says of Eliyahu, he will turn the hearts of the children back to the parents, and the parents of the children, and back, and turn the people back to God, essentially. Okay, so let's look at this. Okay, how can Mashiach ben Yosef lead the armies of Israel against the nations if there is no state? If there's no state, there is no army. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if there's no state, there's no army. So he can't lead an army if there isn't a state. Okay.
That's what I have the problem.
Yeah, well, the second part of that is the second part of that is that it says that Mashiach will turn the hearts back to God, which tells me that you have to have it has to be a secular state. And
Correct.
It has to be mostly secular people, because if they were all religious, there would be no reason to turn their heart back to God.
Israel is a secular state.
It is, absolutely. That's what I'm saying, is that Israel, as we know it right now, with all of its faults, and let's not kid anybody, there's plenty of them, with all of its faults, is necessary. It has to be that way for Mashiach to come and to be able to fulfill the prophecy of Mashiach. The secular state of Israel has to exist.
That's why I have the problem with the Hasidim and Chabad and these who do not recognize the state of Israel, but they will accept the pension checks, charity.
Yeah.
They will accept that.
Okay, so Simcha actually put something in the chat room. She said, at the time in which these instructions were written, there was a vast difference in the lifespan. Now, I'm going to argue that point in just a minute. Lifespan
what
was
did
the
you say?
average, was much shorter. Remember, in the 1700s, 5 was old. Okay. Also in the 1500s, a 7-year-old stood as an adult for a capital offense in Scotland. Well, that's Scotland, thanks to Mother Church's Age of Reason. Okay, so I want to argue that point, because we know in the Torah, which precedes all of that, it says, what does it say? How long is a man's lifespan? 70 years, and with which strength, 80 years.
Yep.
We have many documented cases of rabbis and sages and stuff that lived to be 100 years old.
Uh-huh.
So this whole idea about, well, people lived a lot shorter lives back then, no, I ain't buying that.
Moses lived to be 120.
Pardon? Yeah, and
Moses
Aharon
lived
lived to be
120.
126.
Yeah. So there's a lot of discrepancies. Uh, this is why you have the whole, like if you look at the Gemara, this is why you have all these poskim. They argue between each other, but they never come up with a true answer.
Yeah.
You know, they'll say in conclusion. They'll never say in our opinion, because they don't have an opinion, because if they had an opinion, they would be wrong.
Yeah.
So they say, in conclusion, we think. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong. It's the same thing. I can see for a certain specific reason that, to marry an 8-year-old or to marry a 13-year-old to a 12-year-old, to me, makes no sense. I mean, but they did in those days. They did marry, a 13 and a 12. This is a known fact. Is it right? For me, no. And I may be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, most of the patriarchs weren't married until they were later in their years.
Yes.
Okay, we are past our break time, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to take our break. Rabbi Ancel, I am going to turn you down for a moment. Okay, so we're going to take our break, and I'm going to get my things set here, and we will be back in 6, so stay tuned.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back. So let me bring Ancel back in. And okay, so you're back live again.
Okay.
Okay. So what did we learn from all of this? I think we probably learned a lot more than we did last week.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so we know that it's a mitzvah to give charity because it's called out numerous places in the Tanakh and the Talmud. Okay, that every person is obligated to give some kind of charity according to their capabilities. And if you can't give money, then you're obligated to, not turn them away with nothing. If it's as it says here, even a dried fig or words of consolation.
Or you can even ask them, do you need some clothes? Do you need, there's always something to give. Or, like it says, you can make him feel better, talk to him and give him words of consolation. That is also a big mitzvah.
Yeah.
Because he's feeling down. So you're bringing up his soul. So that in itself is, I would consider as a mitzvah. Probably more than actual money. So,
yeah. Sometimes that's all the person needs is some encouragement.
I like the section where they were talking about loaning somebody money to go into business if he has a profession, and you can make him a partner, and then when he makes money, he can pay you back the loan, and then he can be on his own in his own business, or stay in a partnership. That to me it makes sense and is important.
Yeah, that one it's I do like that because not only you are giving charity in a way, but it's not being looked at as charity by the person that's actually receiving it.
Yeah, but you're loaning him money. It doesn't say that you're charging him. You're not allowed to charge interest.
Right. Yeah.
And If you want to make him your partner, and the poor man accepts, that's okay too. Then once he starts making good money, he can start repaying you.
Yeah. So let's go. I'll read back that section again. So it says
I got it right.
pardon.
I got it right in front of me.
Oh.
A person should always distance himself from charity, accepting difficulty rather than needing the assistance of others. So stated our sages, so blessed memory. Make your Sabbath like a weekday, but don't seek assistance from others, even if he was. Oh, no, so I'm in the wrong one.
Yes, you are.
Sorry. I thought I did.
Yeah,
It's further up.
yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is. Let's see. It's 12. So let me scroll this back up to 12 here for you. There you go, right at the top.
Yeah. The greater rung of which has nothing above it on the ladder of charity is supporting the poor Jew and maintain his position before he reaches other poverty.
Okay, so before you go on, this goes back to we have a lot of prayers that talk about God, raising the falling. It doesn't say fall in. It doesn't say that the person has fallen. It says that he is falling and Hashem raises him up before he's fallen.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what it's talking about here. We're raising this person up before he falls to that position.
Yeah. This includes giving him a proper gift in an honorable manner. Don't throw it in his, that's saying, don't throw it in his face. Just give it to him nicely. Granting him a loan, or go into partnership with him, or finding him a business or profession which allows him to support himself. That to me is just terrific. And does not be forced to rely on others. On this was said, you shall come to his aid, assist him so he does not fall.
Exactly.
That to me is the greatest.
Yeah, because
Assisting him to go into a business for himself, even if you give him a loan and he becomes self-sufficient. I think that's one of the greatest mitzvahs a person can do.
yeah, that was last night again. On last night's show, we were reading the stories. There was a story about a man who had gone. Every business that he went into failed for some reason or another. And what it said in the story was that if the man decided to sell candles, the sun would never set. So some people are just not good, just not good with business. Oh, that was the trickster and and the miser. Yeah, that was the story, which was a great story.
I knew a kid at Chabad in Fort Lauderdale. Same story. He tried everything. So he went to the rabbi and said, Rabbi, I have the greatest idea. If you help me out and speak to the members of the shul to put together, I want to go to Israel. I want to stay by the wall, and I want to sell candles. And that's what the rabbi did. And he went to Israel. And for years, he became the top salesman for candles. People just happened to like him. And he made a good living out of it. Unfortunately, he died very young because he died of cancer.
Oh.
But they were talking about him, how nice he was to people, and how he was explaining about why they should buy a candle. He never ripped off people. People just liked him.
and he actually had a good life. So, yeah, some people are meant to be in business, some people are not meant to be in business. Some people are meant to be professionals. Some people are meant to be plumbers and electricians. They still make a good living.
Well, yeah, and they don't have a whole lot of debt from college either. I mean, that's why
No,
we
you
had.
don't. They
Unfortunately,
don't
we
have
don't
big
have
loans.
those apprenticeship programs like we used to.
Yeah, they don't have big loans to pay out.
Yeah, that's yeah. Well, that's a whole nother subject. The whole thing about apprenticeships and stuff like that.
Uh,
Which I mean, that's basically how people learned. For long before colleges and universities came along, doctors.
you did apprenticeships for many, many years before you became a tradesperson. You
Well,
know,
actually, any profession, because
even doctors, they do 1 year of internship, and they take advantage of those doctors. They work so many hours and they get paid really nothing.
yeah,
Here in the Dominican, they do two things. They do 2 years internship. The first year internship is for free. I don't know how they survive. Stephen's wife is doing, Sarah is doing, started today. 1 year internship with no pay.
yeah.
And then the second year is they start to pay them at $200 a month, and that's after being a doctor. Anyways, this is Dominican, so.
Yeah, but I have a book by a relative that was printed in the late 1400s, and he was a physician, and one of the things that he talks about in there was, the apprentices one particular apprentice that he had, that that's how they learned. They didn't go to university. They studied with a doctor until that doctor determined they were competent enough to go on and treat other people, and then they would, in this case, they would be granted a license by the king, based on the word of the physician who trained him, and then they were considered a doctor. I mean, that's basically how people learned it back in those days. And then we got into the universities and stuff like that. I mean,
Can you imagine working with a doctor and learning how to do surgery? Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That's pretty rough.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from the universities that are actually teaching people something of value. Doctors and engineers and stuff like that. But who needs a doctorate in medieval poetry?
No.
And that is about the most worthless degree I could ever think of. I mean, oh, I've got a doctorate in women's studies. So, can you flip a burger and can you say, would you like fries with that? That's about all it's worth.
Correct.
I mean, you got so many people that are going to college and spending a tremendous amount of money to get a degree where the only way that you can make a living is if you get a job as a teacher teaching that subject.
Or
other than that, it's worthless.
Or you're a good football player or basketball player, and basically they will pass your course so that you can play because they need you on the team. So
yeah, and then there's all kinds of stories out there about because very few of them go from college into professional athletes, whether it's basketball, baseball, whatever. Very
they
few
have
of them
enough
actually go
invested.
there, and the guys come out of college with a degree in something that they really don't know anything about, and they
Bachelor's,
become gym teachers.
bachelor's degree in basket weaving.
Yeah, or physical education. I think every phys ed teacher that I had was a college athlete who thought he was good enough to make it in the pros and didn't make it. So there you
So
go.
he's a teacher.
I mean, I have actually seen athletes who actually did, and there's many stories of, especially going back into the early, um, the early part of the last century, where these guys were playing sports. They got paid very little from the sports, and basically they used it to supplement their income while they were going to college and getting a degree in something that they could. Was a Spalding. Spalding's a good example. I mean, you see that name in everything in sports.
Yep.
But I mean, he was a good player. He didn't last that long in the majors, but he did have a degree, and it was actually a useful degree. And he put that degree to use and built a giant sports empire from it.
Yep. Some do get lucky.
I think it's more than luck. I think it's having the foresight to actually say that, my career is going to be short. I could get injured and have nothing.
Jordan, the basketball player.
Yeah, I mean, you people out there know what a freak I am about baseball. I read about baseball constantly, the records and stuff like that, and yeah, I mean, some of these guys, they're really good and top of their sport and everything, and the next thing you know, they get injured and their career is over.
The worst team that ever played baseball was the Detroit Tigers.
Hey, watch that. No, the worst team had to be the Chicago Cubs.
The Cubs.
Yeah, the Cubs. The Cubs. Well, I mean, next to the Mets. Next to the Mets, the Cubs were probably the worst.
I used to like Boston because had some good players like Aryel used to play there for them.
Oh yeah. The Yaz.
Yeah. The Boston, the field with the green monsters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I follow baseball, but mostly what I follow is college football. My team is the Crimson Tide. Has been there for years. What?
Oh, the Crimson Tigers, huh?
No, Crimson Tide.
Oh, the Crimson. The Alabama.
Yeah.
Alabama, the Crimson Tide. Yeah. Made famous in a song by Steely Dan. So there you go. Deacon Blues. Okay. There is a Chabad rabbi by the name of Noam Schiller, who is an encyclopedia of baseball. I love listening to his lectures when he's talking about baseball, and then he ties it into, whatever he's talking about, whether it's Judaism or whether it's, dealing with people or whatever like that. The guy is just absolutely amazing.
Listen, we had some good Jewish baseball players.
Oh,
Sandy
yeah.
Koufax.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wouldn't pitch on Yom Kippur. So.
Yeah, and he actually went to the rabbis to see if he could actually pitch on Rosh Hashanah. And they told him he could.
Oh.
Yeah. And what team was he from? I forget. What team was he with?
Los Angeles Dodgers?
No, he's with the Detroit Tigers. So your theory just went right out the window. But on the other hand, you had Ty Cobb with the Tigers, and I'll tell you,
Ty
boy,
Cobb.
what a mumser, right?
Ty Cobb was one of the best.
One of the best, but boy, I'll tell you what, he was a raving anti-Semitic and
Yep.
a raving racist. And that was an interesting thing that I came across at the baseball didn't actually get segregated until the late 1890s.
Then you got people like Jackie Robinson and came in and showed them how to play baseball.
Yeah, but before that, baseball was integrated prior to the 1890s.
Yep.
You had at the time when what's his name? Ancel, not Ancel. I'm sorry. I can't think of what his name is. He became the commissioner of baseball in the late 1890s. He was from Chicago, and he was the one that imposed the whole segregation of baseball. Prior to at that point, there were 28 black players in the professional Major League Baseball. They all lost their jobs after that, and most of them went back started the Negro Leagues.
They started at the Negro League.
Right. And then they had to wait until the 1950s to be able to get back into professional baseball. Oh well.
What are the people in the room doing? Sleeping.
Well, let's see. No, hey, it's our show. We get to talk about whatever we want to. Dal says, baseball is habit forming. Yes, it is. It really is. I tell you, I can remember. I can remember watching baseball games when I was 7, 8 years old. And let's see. Let's see. Marilyn says, my sister-in-law's brother, Norman King, wrote a book about the Montreal Expos. Okay, yeah, I'll have to look that up. See if I got it in
Montreal
my library.
Ancel didn't do a lot.
Yeah, they came later on during
They
the
had some good
expansion
players,
years.
They had a few good players, but they never amassed anything.
Yeah. I mean, they were an expansion team. They came along about the time that. Let's see.
They were in the wrong city because French Canadians were interested in the Montreal Canadiens. They were interested in hockey, not the ball.
Hockey and curling, right? Hockey and curling.
Baseball, but take a look. They won a couple of World Series.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised you're not more of a baseball fan. I mean, being in the Dominican Republic, because, I mean, that's that's baseball haven there anymore.
Yes.
I mean, that's.
I have a friend of mine that pitched in the second league for Boston. He pitched a few relief games for the actual Boston Red Sox. He is here teaching Dominican kids baseball.
Yeah, the Dominicans love baseball.
Oh yeah,
and they are good at it.
Nothing else.
I mean, my favorite baseball players are from the Dominican Republic. Miguel Cabrera and some of the others like that. I mean, they come out with some fantastic baseball players.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. Okay, well, we are about at our end of our time, and like I said, it's our show. We get to talk about whatever we want. So we talked about charity, we talked about Israel, and we talked about baseball, and There you go. That's how the show is. Okay, so I'm gonna turn you down right now, and then unless you got something else to add.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, I'm gonna turn you down. I'll be back with you after we go out here. I want to thank everybody for being here this evening. I hope you enjoyed it. I know me and Ancel enjoyed it because we got to talk about things. Don't forget, tomorrow night is the in-depth Torah study with myself and Rabbi Ancel. Will be back with us again, where we continue on our in-depth study of Tetzaveh. Then Friday night at 8 p.m. is Kabbalat and Ma'ariv Shabbat service, and Shabbat at 10 a.m. Eastern is Shachrit Musaf. Monday is Zeta Story Corner at 8 p.m. Eastern, and right back here next Tuesday for the Rabbis Discuss. I also wanted to mention that tomorrow night. Now we've been talking a lot about the clothing of the Kohen Gadol and the ephod and stuff like that, and we were talking about the stones that were in the ephod. And we're going to go into those because Rabbi Ancel is actually quite knowledgeable about gemstones and stuff like that. So we're going to go through all of those, what those things actually are, what those stones that were in the ephod, what they actually were as we know them today. So you don't want to miss that. And until the next time, we'll just simply say, Laila Tov.